Hello and welcome to our video today. We're continuing now with the series about microfinance and assessment skills. This one is called Adapting to a Non-Peaceful Environment. In a situation where there's not peace, it is hard to support projects, and funders recognize this. War almost always destroys wealth, whether it is crops or land and buildings, infrastructure like roads and bridges, or natural resources. So in a situation where war or the threat of war is present, the most fundamental question is this the right time to go ahead with this project? No one wants to see a lot of time and effort put into a project which is destroyed 6 months later. In fact, projects in these circumstances can accelerate the loss of the wealth, which is exactly the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So here's a case study. A village in Kothalei has been destroyed several times by the Burmese army. Crops have also been destroyed or taken away for use by the army. The Burmese army does not occupy the village, but visits it about every 6 months. Close to the village are a number of large teak trees, which are worth a lot of money. They are also much harder, but not impossible, for the Burmese army to take away. The village needs a school, and a project has been put together to cut down some of the trees, sell the wood, and use the proceeds to build a school and pay the teacher's salary. There are very clear benefits in this in terms of educating the village's children. Is this project a good idea? What are the risks of doing it? What is the outcome if it's not done? Are there other ways to get all or some of the benefits of a school? So here's some thoughts about this situation. Firstly, it's quite a complex problem. The cost of doing nothing is the lost education that the village children will not receive. It's very difficult and maybe a waste of time to put a money value on this. The trees are a major asset of the village. They are achieving what money, chat, is failing to achieve. They are storing value for future use. If they're cut and sold, the chat received will go down in value. So converting them to cash is not a good idea. The value is stored better as trees than as chat. The trees will be worth as much and maybe more in future, but the chat will be worth less. The Burmese army could cut the trees and take them away, and the value would be lost. This risk cannot be quantified, but it would need full-scale occupation of the village to do it, which is outside the present situation, where they only visit every 6 months. They could also destroy the trees with explosives, but they haven't done that in the past. Since the wealth of the village is tied up in the trees, it would be good strategy for the villagers to avoid anything that draws the Burmese army's attention to them. It's doubtful if the trees could be cut, the wood prepared, and school built in 6 months. So the chances are that the Burmese army would visit before it was finished. They could then destroy it if they wanted to. Even if it was completed in 6 months, there is a strong chance that they would destroy the completed building. That outcome would mean that the village has got nothing in exchange for the trees which have been cut. So the conclusion is that this project is not a good idea. It would mean the loss of more of the village's wealth compared with if it wasn't done. And it would also draw attention to the value of the remaining trees. So the question then is whether anything can be done to reduce the negative effect of not doing it, that is, the lost education. This should lead to a debate about whether education can be provided without needing a specialized building, and whether there are other ways to cover the cost of a teacher's salary. So there's a follow-up question, which you can debate. Would the answer be different if the project was an application for a donor to provide the money to build the school and the trees were not being cut? My thoughts about this situation: the funding source only changes the picture a little bit. Except for drawing attention to the value of the trees, the position is very much the same. The value of the donation could be wiped out with the next Burmese army visit. Donors will not be keen on this situation. They want to see their donation provide lasting value. They may be willing to pay for the teacher's salary as a way to give education to the village children. So, next case study. The same village, the same situation. Traditionally, the village has grown rice without fertilizer, and it takes around 5 months to grow. The Burmese army's visits are becoming more random, and there is a worry that they will come when the rice crop is ready to pick and take it all away or destroy it. So a project has been proposed to use some of the land that rice is grown on to grow morning glory instead. Morning glory takes about 90 days from sowing to picking, and it's sown continuously so that some is ready to pick every day. The project needs a small amount of money to buy some seed, which will be repaid over 3 months as the plants are used or sold. So, questions. What advantages do you see for morning glory over rice as a crop in this situation? Second question. If the war ended, would you go back to growing 100% rice, or would you continue to grow morning glory? And number 3, if you were the lender, would you support this loan, knowing that the Burmese army could come and destroy the plants? So here's my thoughts about that situation. Morning glory has several advantages over rice in this situation. It grows in 90 days, so the chances of it maturing between army visits is higher. By continuous planting and picking, there will probably be a small amount ready to pick during an army visit, but the crop that is not ready to pick is less likely to be affected. Morning glory is useless as food a few days after picking, and this makes it hard to store or to transport, and not attractive for the army to take away. If the fields of morning glory were simply neglected while the army was around because villagers couldn't look after them, all that is lost is the plants that are ready to pick at that time. The rest of the plants are still good. Any plants that rot put their nutrients back into the soil for future use. Okay, second question. Would you keep on growing morning glory in a peaceful situation? We don't really have all the information we need to make this call. But the continuous supply of food remains attractive, and the diversification of risk too. Of course, it may be that the price of rice means they can make much more money for the amount of land used by growing rice, and then they can use that money to buy other foods. We just don't know, but the debate should cover these issues. Last question. As a lender, would you support this loan? And again, there's no yes or no answer to this. Microlenders usually have only a limited amount of funds, so they have to pick the best ones that they can support with that allocation. The fact that this is in a war zone is a significant disadvantage for this proposal versus one from a war-free zone. But again, the continuous production helps. It doesn't matter if production is nil for, say, 2 weeks during the army's visit. It resumes again after, and so the repayment schedule just gets put back a few weeks. So conclusions from the case studies. Payback period is clearly critical. In this case, having a payback period shorter than the Army's visiting schedule makes a big difference. The size of the project and the loan requested are very important. The first case study asks for a big loan, which is always going to be a problem for the lender because of the risks. The second one also has risks, but the loan is small and the risks are less. There is no certainty that the lender would support case 2. They may have better proposals from other villages, but there is some chance that they would support it because the amount is small. Transportability is a consideration, something to think about. The rice is easily transported away by the Burmese army, but the Morning Glory is much harder because it goes bad quickly. So, conclusion, a badly thought out project may lead to a greater loss of wealth than if nothing was done. In case study 1, the value of the trees used to make the money for the school building is lost, which would not occur if they'd been left as growing trees. The position of the other trees is also made worse by highlighting the value that is tied up in the trees. And this is the end, my friend. See you next time.